Coming to you from the M&M Exterior Studio in Nooksville, Virginia, this is Flushing It Out with Samantha Spittle, the introvert's extrovert. She talks to people so you don't have to. For now.
Well, thanks for flushing it out with me today. Why don't you tell everyone who you are, Havilah, my guest this week?
I'm Havilah Vangroll, and I have strategy coaching. I am a nutrition and health coach. I specialize in teaching you the how. A lot of people know you should. I know what I should do. I know I should be doing this, but I don't always know how. So I'm the how person. So I teach you how to do it. I teach you how to plan, how to cook, how to make it simple. So A Healthy Life Simplified really is about making it simple. It's not always easy, but it is simple. And so I really break it down into that. And we do spend a lot of time in food and nutrition because that's my happy place. I like food and nutrition. But I'm also a group fitness instructor. I've been active my whole life. I'm very passionate about getting people up and moving and healthy. But it doesn't have to be hard. And it's not going to the gym every day and working out for an hour. It's literally using your sport watch. You know, if you have a watch like an Apple Watch or a Fitbit or whatever, you're going to vacuum the house. Put a workout on and see how many calories you actually burn. Because let me tell you, I come out in a full sweat when I'm done vacuuming my house. I want credit for that.
And maybe that'll get me to vacuum. Yes. That's great.
I also just started getting 150 minutes of exercise and 700 active calories. I'm like, yes, vacuuming.
Well, it's the little things that add up, right? Like, I know for me, I am struggling and working through this whole all or nothing subconscious mentality.
Yes.
And so it's just but when I'm in a good place, that's kind of where I am. So I love that you are the how person. So I would love to hear more about you and like how, I know we talked a little beforehand, getting ready for the call of, you kind of have been on your own personal journey. And I think that's the best. I mean, every guest, it's like, we've all gone through stuff and it gets us to where we are and why we're passionate about the things we're passionate about. So I would love to hear more about you. And then of course, I also selfishly would like some of the hows today. So if anyone else needs a little bit of the hows, then let's make sure to wrap some of those into
it.
The
beautiful thing is I'm about to start a how program, a 6-week how program. And that's Healthy Meal Simplified. So what I do in 6 weeks is I walk you through how to create, there's the how to create a meal plan that is not overwhelming, that helps eliminate that decision fatigue, that creates a consistent budgetary understanding of your food costs every week, because that's important, right? Like we're all working on budgets right now. We all need to know how much money is going in and coming out. And people often say, I go out and I buy all this food and then it rots in my fridge. Well, that's a huge waste of money. What else are you spending? So it's helping kind of balance all of that. We do cooking demonstrations, so I'll walk you through a number of recipes. So you'll leave with like recipes, the how-tos, how to plan, and a 30-day meal plan that you can repeat and people won't feel bored. Because,
awesome.
And then I often get all the moms who are like, well, I want to eat healthy, but my whole family fights me on it. And I'm like, yeah, we're going to fix that. Like we work on that. Like everything from having those hard and uncomfortable conversations to creating better mindsets for mom and the whole family around food and what is or isn't healthy or how to eat or not eat. And even really basic things that sound silly, but like kitchen organization, make your kitchen functional so that you can find things quickly and it makes it less frantic, right? When you're trying to cook something, if everything's where it's supposed to be. So my sort of journey is.
And I was going to stop. Before you even go in, I'm like, okay, what I'm excited about. So for me with Flushing It Out, I love talking about the stuff, that like we don't always talk about and kind of peeling back the layers. Right. And, there's lots of great fitness and things like that out there. And I've loved talking to all of the amazing fitness people because I feel like I've been lucky to have people, especially on the show too, who are like very holistic minded. Like it's the whole self, it's the internal and the external. It's not just do X, Y, and Z. And especially now that we're coming out of this quarantine, I know I can speak for myself personally that, it's been a year. There's been a lot of emotional, coping mechanisms. And one of the things that is coming across my feed is kind of that whole anti-diet culture mentality. It's kind of like, get ready for your beach body, get your beach body ready. Like, well, why isn't can my body in its state now be a beach body?
Yeah.
not really wanting to pass that on to, my kid. Like, I already have that crap that I'm dealing with. I really don't want to pass that on. So I love your meal planning approach and kind of working versus that thought. So that's why I'm excited to like, okay, let's kind of get some of this real crap that people struggle with.
No, and again, I think that that's part of it too, is like, so for my journey to really kind of compress a really large branchy tree, for lack of a better word.
We all got them. Yep, we all got them. But I want to hear some of that tree too.
Yeah, it's crazy, right? No, so I was super, super blessed to be raised by a mom who was interested in nutrition and health and started doing all the things that are relatively trendy now before anybody even knew what they were. So I was super blessed in that I grew up knowing things that I assumed everybody knew, and was totally shocked and horrified when I found out nobody knew these things. I was like, what? Well, why not?
What are these things? Tell me, Havilah, tell me.
Well, just things, things like, carbohydrates. So I did a whole thing on carbohydrates recently, right? Carbohydrates get a bad rap. Well, anything that is not fat or protein, guess what it is? A carbohydrate. So that means that vegetables are a carbohydrate. Fruit is a carbohydrate. Grains, obviously, carbohydrate. Even the ones that are protein-based. Beans, everybody's like, but beans are protein. No, beans are actually carbohydrates first, protein second. Like nuts are fat first, protein second. So nuts go into the fat category, not the protein category. Beans go into the carbohydrates category, not the protein category. So just things like that, right? Now, some of this I've had to relearn as I've gotten older, because our diet culture, our eating culture, it's pervasively filled with bad information. So when I had my second child, had really bad food allergies when he was born. I was like, how do you have really bad food allergies? Like, we've done everything right. But he did. And he had like weird food allergies, like coconut. Who's allergic to coconut? My child was.
I know someone.
Right. I have a friend whose daughter's allergic to avocado. Like, avocados? Oh my God, my life would be over without avocados. After my second child, I started having I've always had acid reflux, but it was pretty managed naturally for a long time. After my second child, it was out of control and there was no managing it. And I ended up on drugs, as well as my child. We were both on heavy antacids, and those are not good to be on long term. And he was on it for a very long time. And I was like, nobody in the regular doctor world could tell us why and how to get him off. And everything we tried failed. So we finally went to a naturopath and I said, fix it. I said, just fix it. Like, we need a new plan and this is not working. She, in 15 minutes, was like, oh, I know what's wrong. And here's what you need to do. And probably it took us a year to get him completely off the pharmaceuticals, because we went really slow because we didn't want to create a flare. There's all these complexities to it, but
yeah,
it took us a year to get it off. But within 2 weeks of doing what she had suggested that we do, his acid reflux almost completely disappeared. And he's now been completely pharmaceutical free.
Wow.
For, oh God, he's almost 13. So
wow.
12, so 9, 10, 11, 12, so almost 4 years.
Wow.
He does take deglycerided licorice every single day, but he can take that for the rest of his life and there's no side effects. Yeah. So it was having a child who had serious issues, and then myself having really bad things between a really stressful job. My daughter got very, very sick, and I had a son who couldn't eat things. And I was a bloated, gross mess. I felt disgusting. I'd never in my entire life felt like that. And I was like, what is wrong with me? I ended up having to take dairy out of my diet, which was like, stab me in the heart, make me cry, right? I ate dairy 6 times a day. So when you're like, I could never live without, trust me, you can, and you will be better for eliminating whatever it is that's creating distress in your body. And you will be like, why did I resist that so much? Like, yes, I love dairy, but I like feeling better more.
That's like the whole emotional thing too. Like when you're in I can just speak from experience. It's like when you're in a place where, like, I've said before, like with the year that it's been, I needed that hit of serotonin, dopamine, endorphins, whatever the stuff that gets produced when I'm having that good stuff. It was like, okay, to get through this season, that kind of took priority, but I know that I don't want to stay there. But then there's that, like, that's where that rub is, where it's like, oh, I know that I will be happier when I am not doing this,
but it's so that out of your system and start over.
But it's so hard to like, but that,
But here's why it's so hard. So do you want to understand the interesting, and this is a small tangent and we'll get back to my story in 1 second, but
of course I do.
The reason that food has that emotional hit and creates that serotonin happy feeling and that melatonin happy feeling and that dopamine happy feeling is because we think of those hormones as brain hormones. They are actually 70 to 90% of those hormones are produced in your gut. They're directly produced by the food that you eat and the health of your gut. So, and in this season of quarantine, there's been a lot of conversation about immune support and immune systems and, long haul COVID people versus short term. And what has come out is dysbiosis means an imbalance of in your gut, right? So COVID specifically, because that's where we are right now, creates dysbiosis in the gut. Well, so does so many other autoimmune diseases as well as poor nutrition. So back to my story. So that's why that food, that there's that happy connection. It's not just emotional eating. There's a physiological response to food in your gut that sends hormones to your brain that goes, happy, happy.
All connected. See, this is all that stuff. That's why when people are like, it's kind of the whole like anxiety thing too. You just calm down. Like they'll just call, oh yes, thank you. Thank you so much for just telling me to calm down. I'm going to go do that. So I feel like that's same with food. It's like when, that's the way you explained it, there's that huge connection. And, it's not just as easy as, oh, I'm just not going to do that.
Right. And it's the same thing when you're talking about healthy eating, right? Or when you're talking about exercise, or yes, I know I should go do it, but how do I build it into a day that already feels overwhelming? How do I add it to one more thing of where everybody's already asking 17 things of me? I don't have time to ask one thing of myself. How do I do this? And that's where I was. So I had a sick kid. She was in and out of the hospital. She had reoccurring brain tumors that were creating trauma. She's great now. She's good now.
Good.
She's almost 5 years stable, so we're good. But it was a really, really stressful time. So I had a child who had severe acid reflux. He didn't sleep for 2.5 years. I got 18 months of sleep, and then she got diagnosed. And it was like, oh, okay, I got nothing left. Now, I am a stress starver. So that means that when I am stressed, I don't eat. Do you think, well, you lose a lot of weight? Yes, I do lose a lot of weight. But the tragedy is that the second I start eating again, not only do I gain back what I've lost, I then start to add because my body goes, oh, we just went through a famine. We got to make sure we're prepared the next time. So stress starving is not any better than stress eating. It's just a different problem. So my metabolism was a mess, right? Just a total disaster. And I had never in my entire life had this problem. So for me, this was like a really new, scary, weird space. And I did not understand where I was or how I got there. There was a lot going on. As I went through my daughter coming in and out, like she would get better for a while and things would get worse. And in one of those sort of rest periods that we had, that's what I called them, was rest periods. One of those respites that we had where she had been for a longer period of time stable, we felt like we had a minute to breathe. I started diving deeper into personal development because I was like, this is more than just food. Like I eat pretty well. Yes, it's not great, but I eat pretty well. I do still exercise some, not as much as I was, but I still do exercise some. And I was like, something is still not right because I'm doing all the physicality things, but there's something still, I'm disconnected. I'm disconnected from my physical self a little bit. The emotional self was disconnected. And so that was about 6-7 years ago. I started diving into personal development and went, what am I doing? I was in a career I did not love. I'd been in that career for a long time. I stayed in that career for 22 years. I did it for 22 years. I left it like 5 times, but kept coming back to it because it was something that worked really intuitively for me. It was a high stress, high emotionally demanding industry though. And that wore me out. And I got to the point where I was like, I can't keep doing this because I got nothing left in the tank, nothing. Like, how do I refill my tank? And so that's how I got into personal development and started taking some group courses and following some people and just started reading. And then my daughter had a relapse and I sort of just put everything on hold. And it was in that first respite that I started That Cooking Coach, which was my first, actually was my second iteration of this, but that's where I started That Cooking Coach. Because what I wanted to do was I wanted to teach people how to cook for themselves. Like, food is such an integral part of our lives. It is the one thing we all have to do every single day if we want to live. You have to. You have to eat. Food is social. Food is the one time it doesn't matter who you are, where you came from, even what language you speak. If you put food down, people come and all of a sudden it's neutral ground.
Yep.
Food is a social ability, right? Like, food is the thing that connects people across generations, across cultures, across everything, right? Think about how hugely popular food travel shows are, and food cooking network, the cooking networks and the baking shows, and food is visceral.
It's life.
Basic need.
Yeah,
it's a basic need. So I wanted to help people connect to food in a healthier way and give them the skills that they needed. As I did that business and then had to put it on the shelf for a while because things got a little rough with my daughter again. And that was a whole learning and growing process too. I mean, honestly, I wouldn't be the coach I am today or the person I am today if we hadn't gone through that really, really challenging space. Facing the possibility of mortality, not for yourself, but for a child it's a little shattering, and it's very humbling. And watching people around you have to deal with that and have to find a way to function forward was really, it brought clarity to a lot of what was good, right, or indifferent in my life, for me personally and for us as a family.
You said find a way to function forward. I thought that was really huge, because when you're going through a crisis, and I feel like that's, I'm so glad your daughter is okay. And thank you for sharing that, because that's so heavy. But it's a reality that is a reality. And so
for a lot more people than we think. I mean, childhood cancer and brain tumors and all of that gets almost no research. It gets very little press because there's no money in it and people are like, oh no, they're not trying to ignore children. No, they are. The medical industry absolutely 100% ignores children. And I had to do an all-out battle with Inova one year to get her surgery that she needed, a brain surgery that she needed, scheduled, because it landed in the middle of elective surgery season, and they literally took every pediatric surgeon off the schedule. I can't make this up.
Yeah.
So I went to war with Inova and said, you fix it. You fix it now, or I tell the world the hypocrisy that you're preaching right now. Because they're like, we're the premier children's hospital in the region. I was like, not if you're not putting your kids first. And my thought in that was, I have the skills, I have the knowledge, and I have the ability to not just make this better for my child, but there were 8 kids behind her waiting to be scheduled. And I know at least half of them didn't speak English well enough to know to fight this, or wouldn't have had the confidence to go to the head of pediatrics at Inova and say, what are you going to do about this? Because if you don't fix it, you need to tell me who can fix it. And if you can't do that, I will go to the media and find out who does. I wasn't going to lawyer up. I was like, I'll go to the media.
Yeah.
And he was like, literally 15 minutes. He called me back. Every pediatric surgeon had their surgical spots back. They were checking in with our specific neurosurgeon daily to make sure he didn't have anybody who needed scheduling. 15 minutes, the problem was solved, because I stood up and said, no, that's not right.
And you used your voice for yourself and others.
Right. But how many parents, I mean, my thought was, how many other parents don't know that they can challenge this, or that they should challenge this, or how many kids could potentially have life-altering changes in their disease because they can't have surgery, because it's not convenient for the hospital. So that was part of my realizing too, that that this is not just about me and my family. Obviously, that's who I advocate for first, and I advocate strongly and loudly, and do not get in my freaking way.
That's the fuel that propels you. So Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it was also, okay, there's a need and I have the ability to fill that need. I need to step into that. And it was scary and it's hard. And I'm not going to say that it's easy every day to put myself out there and be on social media. And you know, every time I get a client or a client leaves, I'm like, did I fail? Did they not get anything? Am I okay? Like all that self-doubt and that, you know, people, but you're so confident and you're so strong. And I'm like, I'm not strong. I'm functioning forward. Like, what other option do I have?
Oh my gosh, I love that. I love that because we're in this I mean, whether we can blame it on like social media culture, blah, 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 blah. I mean, I think it's just human instinct to compare and all that kind of stuff. And we give ourselves hard times where if the best we can do is to just function forward as long, you know, like good on us.
When you're in crisis mode, that's definitely a big piece of it. And what I think what I kind of came out with it was in the middle of, so just to add some fun to that. So in the middle of all of that, my dad goes into full liver failure and needs a liver transplant and is basically on his deathbed. So we go up to New England to deal with that situation. My dad was young. He was 64 years old. My dad was young.
Yeah.
Undiagnosed disease, all of a sudden started presenting. And in 2 years, he went from totally healthy to basically crashing.
Wow.
Crazy stuff. Needed a liver transplant. New England, nobody in New England would give him a liver transplant. Yes. Tell me you can't do something and watch me show you how you can. Just who I am. And in that particular space, I was very much in the, oh no, we're going to fix this mode. And so myself and I got two of my three siblings on, and we started researching, and we found out that indeed New England is one of the worst places to get a liver transplant. So we said, I had two of us were living here in the Washington, D.C. area, and my brother lives out in California. And I said, come to Virginia because you can list at Hopkins and at UVA because they're two different districts.
Oh.
He waffled and waffled. Finally, we got him and my mom to agree. He came down, he did the interview with Hopkins, and 10 weeks later, he had a liver.
Wow.
10 weeks. But wait, there's more. Like when it rains, it pours, right?
Truth.
So I had a catastrophic Achilles injury in July of 2016, mid chemo with my daughter, mid liver failure with my dad, and I now can't walk.
And now you busted.
Hell, I can hardly get out of bed for 8 weeks. 8 weeks. I've never sat down for more than 5 minutes in my whole life.
Oh my gosh.
So
oh my gosh.
Yeah. That was my so I came out of that year in a very tangled and dark headspace. I had experienced things I had never experienced before. I, for the first time in my life, didn't trust my own physical body to function the way I needed it to. And the first Achilles surgery didn't work. My Achilles was so messed up from a pharmaceutical I had taken years earlier that it took a second surgery and a tendon transplant to actually make it functional.
Wow.
So then I had to repeat what I had done in 2016 in 2018, only this time with a little more planning and a little more support because everybody else wasn't in the middle of a crisis.
Yeah. And that's probably a big part of it too. You know what I mean? Because like your energy was being put in all these other places. So. Right.
So it was, you know, and that, so in doing that, it was also coming out of that I said, okay, this is where I went back into really hardcore personal development in 2018 and said, I need to really figure out my headspace because that's where I'm stuck. I can do the physical stuff. I can eat. Because of the meal plan that I have in place that I actually stole straight up from my mother, because she hated to cook, she hated planning meals, and it's brilliant, it's genius, it works wonderfully, and I'm like, everybody should know this. Like, everybody should know how to do this. And so I came out of that space with a lot more clarity, but understanding that before I could go out and be successful in business and successful as a coach of any kind, I had to get my space right. I had to start here inside in that internal space and sort of, I'll use your thing and flush out those.
Yeah.
It's like my company's have strategy, and I love the word have because I'm like, have connection, have a plan, have strategy.
Yeah.
It's like, yay.
How many times can I repeat this and use it?
It's beautiful, right? It's like, that's what you want. No. So I had to flush that out. I really did. I had to remove those roadblocks. And I did a lot of the work on myself. And I was looking forward into what I wanted to do in the future and knowing where I was. And what I needed to do was compress my timeline, right? Like I knew the work that needed to be done. And I knew that if I went and did it incrementally on my own, which I could have done, it will take years. And I needed it to take months. Because for me to really launch into the next phase of my life, which then became Have Strategy Coaching. So I took that cooking coach and rolled it into what used to be my corporate consulting, which was Have Strategy Consulting. And I made it in my coaching practice. And I really went back into holistic, whole human coaching, because though my passion is food and nutrition and how to do all of that, the skills are good and important and really, really necessary. But unless we change the way we think about and approach and process, and unless we unpack, shake out and ditch what doesn't work for us and keep what does, we can have all the knowledge in the world, but it doesn't mean anything.
And you just keep repeating the same patterns. Like I'm speaking from experience. I keep thinking like, oh, I figured this out. I've done this. And it's like, oh, it's not one and done. It's continual.
It's next level, new devil.
Yeah. And when life happens, you revert back to stuff, your comfort zones and things like that. And so.
Yeah. So I just read a book recently by Barbara Hussin called Rewiring for Wealth. But what she talks about extensively is so our brain is two parts. Our brain is the tangible, physical, actual mushy bits. And it's the intangible sort of cerebral that doesn't actually land, but they interconnect in a way that's irreparable and inseparable. And so the thoughts that we think and the things that we believe, though they're not tangible, create tangible and real etched grooves or neurosynaptic patterns, like actual connections in our brain. And so to rewire, it's like if you've ever, my husband does our own electrical around our house. He likes electrical things. That's what he does. Yeah, it's great. Saves me hundreds of dollars. Unless it's something really big that's outside of his purview. It's great, right?
Yep.
Someone talking to you?
No, I'm saying same over here. I'm like, as long as it's not illegal, everything's permitted and good.
Yeah.
Jeremy,
No, and he does it. He's passed inspections every time we've done it permitted. But when you watch him take a tangle of wires out of something and he has to change the wiring, he has to physically disconnect and reconnect in a different way. The same thing happens in our brain. And Barbara Hussin goes into great detail, and she has all the research to back it up. There's a huge newer body of work around this in neuroscience that it is called neuroplasticity. So plasticity means the flexibility of something, right? It was thought for many years that neuroplasticity stopped at 30. God help me. At 30, we were done. Brain was locked in. There was no changing it.
Dang, that sucked.
How freaking sunk were we? Like at 30? Oh my God. What they've discovered is neuroplasticity exists until the day you die. It's whether you utilize it and work with it. Now, you can absolutely fall into rigid forms and rigid processes, but you can at any point in life until the day you die change one of those neural pathways. Now, it requires killing off connections and reconnecting new ones. Well, our brains are drug addicts. Let's just be clear. Our brains are drug addicts, right?
Yes.
And there are certain things that make our brains feel safe, normal, right? And habitual thoughts, habitual beliefs, habitual doings are those things. There's a chemical that gets released in the brain that goes, oh, this is right, this is right, this is right. Now, it may even be something that doesn't make you feel good, but your brain goes, this is the right pattern.
Yeah. But it makes your brain feel good. Like your brain is like, yes, this is normal.
Right. Normal. Right. So when you start to kill off those old thought patterns, those old beliefs, you're not just changing this cerebral higher level thing. You're having to physiologically rewire your neurosynaptic patterns, your neuroconnectors. So there is actually death happening in your brain as new life is coming in. So our brains go, withdrawal, this feels wrong. You should be following this pathway. Why are we not feeding this pathway? And it freaks out. So that's why it's so easy, even after you've been doing something new and doing it well and it feels very habitual, that one thing triggers you and all of a sudden you're back into this really old ingrained habit.
Yes.
It's like, oh, we know this. We can answer this question.
I'm familiar with that. I'm
Right?
familiar with that.
So the goal for me with coaching and with people, and from my experience, was the work I had to do wasn't just the outside work. The work that I really had to do, the work that really required the hard bits, and the work that I had to go get external help to do was the inner work. And I had a really clear visual of it. I was standing behind a wall that I couldn't see, but I knew was there. It was foggy, it was thick, it was dark, it was sticky, and that wall was harder than concrete. And I had to get through it. I couldn't go over it, couldn't go under it, couldn't go around it. I had to go through it. And getting through it was something I was not going to do on my own in a timely manner. So I wanted the results. I knew the results were on the other side of that. I just had no idea how to chip a hole big enough. I didn't have to knock the whole wall down. I just had to chip a hole big enough for me to get through it. It didn't have to be huge. Just literally just big enough to get my shoulders and hips through, which are too wide.
And then you could shimmy through.
Then I could just get through. I could just get to the other side. Well, here's the thing. I did the work. It was painful. It was horrible. It was bleh, but I did it.
How did you do it though? What's
so
outside
I hired
help?
a vision and mindset coach.
Okay.
Because I knew that's what I needed.
Yeah.
I didn't need a business coach. I needed a vision and mindset coach, because the thing I noticed was in all of that chaos that had happened previously, I had emotionally, that wall was keeping me from my emotions. I am highly functional in a crisis. You want me on your team in a crisis? Because I get shit done. Oh, sorry. I didn't say that.
You can definitely say that.
I mean, I am head down, get it done, feel nothing, get the out of my way, done.
Yes.
But there's a cost to that.
Yes.
And the cost is my emotional connection to myself, which then is a disconnect from spirituality, the bigger universal spiritual, whether that you call that God, the universe, source, whatever you call it. When you emotionally disconnect from yourself, you emotionally disconnect from spirituality. And when you emotionally disconnect from spirituality, you are in a dark, sticky fog all by your lonesome. It's a gross place to be. And I spent a long time there. And I wanted out. So I went and hired a mindset and vision coach, because I couldn't even, I was very good as an imaginative child. I had a crazy imagination. I could not imagine or envision anything beyond a month or two out. I had just limited myself so much in my thinking.
Yeah. And that was the coping mechanism at the time, because you were in crisis mode. And that was the whole functioning forward. Like, in order to function forward, that's what you had to do. You couldn't think.
Or feel. Or get emotionally invested. The odd thing was, it meant that in my professional space, I had very limited emotional control, because I had all of it. It was so compressed and compacted, like the littlest thing would set it off. And then it was like Vesuvius, and it was bad. And it cost professionally, and it cost me personally. And it, because it was just so, and so the pressure was so tight that anytime it got any release, it was way overblown. Yeah. And so I got a vision and mindset coach, and we worked through all that. We chipped a hole through the wall. We got to the other side, and I thought, okay, I'll be good now.
I'm done. You're done. You get to just live coast the rest of your life. You're done.
Guess what was on the other side? Right? Yeah. What was on the other side was a whole pile of building material and a giant chasm, and green grass was a little further away. And now I didn't just have to get through the sticky fog, which I could now see behind me. And that felt really, really good. Like, I felt like I lost 300 pounds, and, all I did was walk through that. Yeah. But now I had to build a bridge. Shit. I don't know how to build this bridge. I mean, I think I know how, but I don't know how. Like, there was a lot of that going on in my head.
Yeah.
And so the second half of working with the mindset coach was bridging what I had left to where I wanted to go in a way that created a healthy connection so that I kept the things that served me, left the things that didn't on that side of the chasm, and walked to the other side, and then got to see what opened up in front of me panoramically. So
that's the liminal space. We talked about that on a podcast with a podcast guest recently, the liminal between where you are and where you're going. So in that space, figure out, like you said, what you keep, what you get rid of.
And
beautiful
here's
opportunity.
The thing. I can do it. I got it. I can do it. I'll figure it out myself. I got it. I don't need your help. I'm good. What I've learned and what I really have a much deeper appreciation for now is I don't got it. I do need help. Sometimes a lot.
I always say, it's been a joke. I say that again. And normally, I would have said it for like functioning forward, but I feel like that is the moment of say that again in this episode is you saying, I don't have it all. I can't do it all. Because it is so huge for all of us to say that and admit that. It feels bigger than.
And I think for women that we have put on ourselves, I don't even think it's really cultural. I think it is self-inflicted. I think we culturally as women have self-inflicted this, that we somehow have to do and be and function completely all the time without assistance. Every successful woman you talk to is like, oh, I have a team. And that team isn't just like my work team. That team is like the person who helps me watch my kids. That team is somebody who cleans my house. That team is the person who brings me my groceries because I don't have time to grocery shop anymore.
But wouldn't you say that men have always had a team, but no one asked them about their team?
Because
they've
men
always
have
had
no
a team.
problem saying, I need you to go do this. Men are natural, not all men. Granted, we're talking in stereotypes and large categories, but generally speaking, men are naturally hierarchical. Women are by nature community builders. And so there's always a consensus builders. Well, do we all want to get along and do this? And if nobody else does, then I'll go ahead and just keep taking care of all of it.
Yeah.
Where men are like, okay, no, this isn't working. I'm going to be the leader here because there's no clear leader. You do this, let's get this done, go. So I read a really fascinating book many, many years ago, and I think it's still in print. It was called Why Men Don't Listen and Women Can't Read Maps. It was
snap.
But it's brilliant. And what it really talked about, it was written by two psychiatrists, both of them practicing, a husband and wife team. It was hilarious. It was very approachable, but it stuck with me because it was like the aha of the entire thing. Things like women externalize to solve problems, men internalize to solve problems. How many communication problems have been caused by that alone? Right?
Yep.
I don't need you to solve my problem. Just listen so I can solve it out loud.
And what I love about that is it's like it's this, as we said, we're speaking in general terms. So it's one of those things like if it comes across in that, these are like things we can remember in all areas of our life, all genders, all that stuff. Like it's just recognize then that we're different. But yes, stereotypically it's in those.
Right. Because we are neurologically wired differently, physiologically different. Our wiring in our brain is physiologically different between males and females. Just is. There's no, well, everybody's equally, and they talk about this too, about the equal versus, and I'm going on a total tangent, but the equal versus what equality really means. We've equated equality with same, when in fact, equality should just be opportunity. Because we are not the same. I don't want to be a guy. I think like a girl because I am one, right? Like, that works for me. So in leadership, having different males and females creates actually a better organization. And again, this is my old corporate consulting that I used to do, but because they think so differently or are wired so differently. But men naturally are hierarchical. They are who's in charge. Again, so my husband says, meant to hunt dinosaurs. We need to know who's going to go first and who's going to go last. I'm like, yep, that makes sense. Meant to hunt dinosaurs. Perfect sense. So, that's part of it. So I think that's where women kind of fall down, is that we've, as culture has gotten more and we are working in more male dominated spaces, we also try to maintain all the female dominated spaces and don't say, hey, if we're going to do this as a team, let's divide this. Let's be an actual team. Let's have a team. And what we can't do personally amongst ourselves, then we need to figure out how to outsource that. And there's no shame in that. But I think there is a lot of people are like, oh, you have a house cleaner. You must be like super rich. I'm like, no, I don't do my nails. I barely do my hair, and I pay for housekeeping. because I need somebody else to clean my house twice a week or twice a month. Like, I can take that off of my plate. Wow. Yes, please. And thank you.
Yeah.
That's my thing.
Yep. We all have our things.
Yeah. So that was the biggest thing, was figuring out that I needed the help and going and getting the help, and then showing up when the work was hard and uncomfortable. And I really, really did not want to open that suitcase and see what was in it, because it was old and dusty and there was shit in there. I did not want to see the light of day.
Yeah. But that's where we have to go.
Yeah.
That's where we need to go.
What was coming with me and what wasn't. And you have to look at it. And that was interesting. So, that was the big thing for me. And so that was why in September of, right in the middle of a pandemic, because this is a good time to launch a brand new business or relaunch a business, I changed that cooking coach into Have Strategy coaching. And we went into the holistic coaching, the one-on-one, as well as the small group coaching. So that we could do that more mindset empowerment as well as the hows. Because without the inner work, the outer work won't stick and it won't make the changes. And I deal with a lot of people who struggle with weight, and I'm not a weight loss coach, but one of the things I find with people who have weight issues is that it's not necessarily what they're eating or doing. It's what they're thinking and believing. And it sounds so, I could just believe myself skinny. That's such garbage. The perfect example is I have a client who has always envisioned herself fat because that's what her mother told her she was. Her daughter was looking at pictures of her as a kid, and she's like, Mom, you were super skinny as a kid. And her immediate thought was, no, I wasn't. I was like, but you have photographic evidence saying differently. But that's not the kid I have in my head.
I can relate to that. I mean, not my mom, thank God. My mom did not, and she worked very hard not to. But that's like for me, because I was always like just bigger, like I'm taller, just, curvier. So, in my brain, it was like, I'm bigger than my friends. So therefore, if I'm bigger than this little petite person, that must mean I'm big. And it's just become a self-fulfilling prophecy. And that's for me. It must mean
that I'm wrong. You made it wrong. You made yourself being different.
100%. And that's for me, like I lost weight. In 2 times in my life, I've lost huge chunks of weight. And I feel like I did it overall, like healthy. And I thought I was doing everything right. But I've said this time, like there's obviously internal shit that needs to get worked out, because no matter how much weight I lose, I still need to lose more. And now Facebook, because it pops pictures up and I see pictures over the last 7 years. And I can remember like a picture being taken. We had these family photos done, like our only professional family photos done. And I was 3 pounds away from the weight I wanted to be that day. Like I kind of had set a goal. Goals are good. Yay. And I didn't hit it. So I felt like crap, like all day, just like, oh, I didn't hit my goal weight. 3 freaking pounds. And I look at the pictures and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so thin, relative and those pictures. But at the I can tell you exactly how I felt that day. I felt like it was hopeless. It was, I'm just going to be fat.
So rather than celebrating the fact that you were within 3 pounds of your goal weight, you were punishing yourself for being not at your goal weight. And that's what I hate about goal weights. Like goal weights are good, but they just need to be written down and put away and forgotten about. Like, seriously. And the other thing too is that people need to understand thin is not equivalent to healthy. And the medical industry has done a huge disservice to people in conflating those two as the same. I love that word, conflate.
Conflating, that is a big word.
Conflating. But they make those two things the same thing, and they're not. They're not. I met so many people who are unhealthy and skinny, and I meet people who are bigger, who are like, I'm fat. I'm like, but how's your blood work? Can you walk a mile and not lose your breath? Can you walk 2? I walk 5 miles a day. I'm like, you're not unhealthy. You just don't like the size you are. You don't like the way you look. Not liking the way you look is different than being unhealthy.
Yeah.
So let's start right there.
It's funny because it's like that for me, like that's why for me, when like the stress of life, and then you just add a pandemic on top of all the other stressful stuff going on, it was like self-fulfilling prophecy. Well, like I am this person who, XYZ. So even though
I eat my feelings. Okay. So now you've given yourself the excuse to eat your feelings. Okay. Are
And
you
then-
really that person? Or are you just allowing yourself to be that person? Again, it's the whole you get
Yeah.
to choose thing. Like the first few
Yeah.
times my coach would say that to me, I really literally wanted to throw punch her. I was like, I don't know if I could say this, but F you. Like,
we can say whatever you want. It's
F
fine.
you. Like, no, I don't get to choose. Like, shit all over me. This isn't a choice. She's like, no, you don't get to choose the life. You get to choose how you respond, which is so funny because in the middle of all those crises, I used to say that. I don't get to choose anything here but how I respond. I get to choose nothing about life except how I show up and how I respond.
Yeah.
And that made all the difference in the middle of that crisis. I always showed up positive. I always showed up on top of it. I always showed up with a plan. Whether that plan mattered in the end, didn't matter. But I always chose to show up a particular way. And the days that I didn't choose to show up good, oh, it was bad. Things were really, really bad. And I watched other people choose to show up a hot mess every time. Well, I don't understand how you're so strong. I couldn't be that strong. I'm like, yes, you could. You could choose to be or you could choose not to be. And I've seen both choices. And so I think, so then I'd gone through all of that and somewhere along the line, I forgot that.
Yeah.
And so when she tells me, well, you can choose how you want to show up, your life, you can choose how you feel. I was like, when does this get to be easier? When does it actually work? When do I get to feel unstuck? She goes, when you choose to. I was like, no, it can't be that simple.
Yeah. Well, it's almost like the coping mechanism of when you were in that chaos mode. It's like the choosing was comfort. Yeah. But it sounds like it's like equated with chaos. So if you just want to move forward, like, I don't want to have to choose how I show up because life's not chaos. Can't life just be good? So I don't have to keep choosing.
Right.
But like, no, we have to keep choosing. Well, as we wrap it up, all right, I want you, now I know you have a program and all this stuff, and we'll wrap up of like, tell people how they can get in touch with you and all that. But because you've teased so much about the hows and whatnot, I want you to lay me with some quick, like, all right, get your, it's not motivation, it's self-discipline and super simple. So give me some like hot takes of like, yes, drop some major wisdom on me to get my shit together. That's what I'm asking.
So the way that I sort of put it all back together for myself and started back on my own path to right and to whole and to feeling my best and my most well was a morning routine. But I actually started with a night routine. It was a nighttime routine first because the nighttime routine was easier for me to do than the morning routine. So I started with a nighttime routine. We all do it. We all have a nighttime routine. It's just modifying it so that it better serves you and sets you up for success the next day. How you go to bed really changes how you wake up in the morning.
Yeah.
It also changes the quality of your sleep. And sleep is absolutely tantamount to health. If you want to lose weight, sleep good. People are like, no. I'm like, yeah, sleep yourself slim. Sleep slim. Sleep is really, really critical. And I don't mean more hours of it. I mean quality sleep.
Quality, yeah.
Bottom line is, unless you have a genetic mutation, and there are about 10% of the population who has a genetic mutation, you need 7 or more hours of sleep every night as a human being. Not 6, not 5, 7. 8 to 9 is probably ideal for most people. What happens in those 7 to 9 hours of sleep is full body cleansing, is your body. So people are like, I'm doing a cleanse. I'm like, oh, okay. We need to have the cleanse conversation, but that's separate. Your body literally scrubs itself from the top of your head to the tip of your toes, all on the inside. That's why when you wake up in the morning, you got to get on the toilet and flush that all out.
True.
It's the cleansing process. So I journal at night. I'm a night journaler. I call it my hamster wheel exit, right? So I have a hamster wheel in my head and I get on these problems and they just go around and around and around until I'm dizzy and would really like off of it, please. Journaling for me externalizes whatever's stuck on that hamster wheel. It just takes it off and puts it somewhere else. It doesn't solve it. It just takes it out of my space. So that was a big part.
Externalizes it. That's good.
Yeah. Nighttime journaling, a little bit of meditative music, some chanting. I listened to some of the yogic chants. I found a program that had some of those in it and I was like, oh, I really like these. YouTube is full of them. That's been really helpful. And just calming the chaos in my brain, because my brain has a tendency to go to chaos. That's my default mode, chaos. And if I'm in chaos, then if I'm just doing the basic things, I'm functioning and I'm okay. But if I want to be productive, you got to calm the crazy. So that was kind of the big thing. So food and nutrition, plan your meals. If you are a mom, plan dinner, grocery shop one time, whether that's you order it or you go to the grocery store one time a week. This helps you with budgeting. This helps you know what you have in your house. Make sure that your pantry and your freezer are always well stocked. You need to be able to cook a meal at the drop of a hat without having to go to the grocery store to get something to do. And if you have a stocked pantry and a stocked freezer, guess what? You can do that. And if you regularly go to the grocery store on a set day, I always tell, pick one day and do it consistently, because that allows you to know exactly how much food you need in a week. It helps with the budgeting, but it also helps with waste. Okay, I bought 4 salads this week. We only ate 2. I don't need to buy more than 2 salads a week. You know, we go through a ridiculous amount of berries in a week in my house. It's great. It's great. But I know. Find local sources for foods if you can. I have a local farm that I buy all my milk, and this is a side note, but non-homogenized, lightly pasteurized is ideal for milk products. Long story, but that's what you need. I buy my eggs fresh. I buy my milk fresh. I buy meat from them because it's local, fresh, grass-fed, pasture-raised, clean meat. They have relationships with local farmers around them, so I can get fruits and vegetable boxes that are local. Go local as much as you can afford and as much as you can find. That alone will clean up a lot of your food space without having to think about if I'm eating clean or organic or whatever.
Yeah.
Know your local farmers. There are some local farmers who are right next to big highways. Not sure that I would eat the stuff that comes off of those because they get all the road chemicals, but the ones who are definitely out in the country have good, clean pastures. So get to know your farmers, check out their websites, check out their location, Google map them.
Awesome.
Know where your food comes from. That's a really big part of it. Know where your food comes from. And then standardize meals. And by that, I mean, pick 5 recipes that you rotate on a regular basis each day of the week. So my meal plan, my signature meal plan is we pick a protein a day and we rotate 5 recipes. So each month you get 4 of those 5. So you always have something different. So you're not reinventing the wheel, but lots of variety, family friendly, everybody's eating healthy. We talk about how to I gotta really pick the eater, they'll only eat beige. You work on that, but you still make one meal. You are not a short order cook. You are mom. And I think that what I really hope legacy-wise that I do is what my mom did for my family, which is create healthy eating patterns through the generations and not just for one member of the family. And not having to let our kids have to figure it out as adults because we didn't have our crap together and teach it to them as they were younger, because it was hard to fight our kids to eat.
Thank you for these tips. It is awesome. I loved that percentage shift. That's so good. So we don't have to beat ourselves up. We're coming out of this season. If this resonates, it's like, take those shifts. And so if someone, to get in touch with you, how can people get in touch with you?
You can email me at thatcookingcoach@gmail.com. So I'm still that cooking coach on Gmail. I'm on Facebook as Have Strategy Coaching. I'm both a business page and I have a private free private coaching group. We do lots of lives and demonstrations and we talk about all this stuff in detail. And I do have, starting on the 19th, so I'm not sure when this will air, but on April 19th.
Yeah, it'll be, that's my anniversary and it should be after that. So perfect.
So on April 19th, I have the 6-week program starting. The cart will stay open until the 21st. So if people would like that, I have that. I will offer it again in the fall. So this is the last time it will be offered. I'll not offer it over the summer and it'll be offered again in the fall. But I have one-to-one coaching and I offer 45 minutes worth of free coaching for anybody who has, brings a challenge and wants to talk about it. So thatcookingcoach@gmail.com or on Facebook at Have Strategy Coaching. And thank you so much for having me. This is
Yay.
so fun.
Thank you. I appreciate you sharing so much about your story, your journey, and definitely the tools. Thank you for that. Because like I said, I know that we're all just coming out of these seasons and we're all in different places, and kind of just knowing that there's resources out there and tips and whatnot is so helpful. And just knowing that we all have shit too. Just, everyone's got it.
You don't have to do it by yourself, and you don't have to
No.
shovel it by yourself. Like, that's the thing. It's like, it's not your burden to bear alone. And I think that's the thing that I've had to learn the most, right? Like,
Yes.
we're all mucking the stall, sweetheart. Let somebody help you muck it. Like,
Thank you for that new analogy. I love it. That is a perfect way to end it. You do not have to shovel the shit alone.
And that's a wrap for now.
Thanks for listening to Flushing It Out with Samantha Spittle. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to subscribe and rate us on iTunes. For all things flushing, visit our website at flushingitout.com. This has been a Spitfire production.
That was the greatest thing I've ever heard.